Welcome to the Health Hobby Podcast, the place for busy moms searching for simple solutions to weight loss, more energy, better nutrition, fitness, and healthy living time management. I'm your host, Amanda Ford. Stick with me and make health your hobby as I guide you through simple steps and skill-building exercises so you can finally hit those dreamy health and weight loss goals. Take it from me, it's time to kick all those fad diets and quick fix workouts to the curb. It's all about slowing down and finding your very own rhythm of healthy living, because when you find your health, you find your joy. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Health Hobby Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Ford. This is the second episode in my nutrition series where I'm teaching you all things nutrition for weight loss success. And I began with vocabulary. That was the episode prior to this one. It's episode number 17. Go back and listen to that if you haven't already, especially if nutrition is a brand new subject for you. You'll want to get to know some of those basic vocab words so you can really understand how this process works, and also to help you make smart decisions in the kitchen. And also, as I continue to talk about nutrition for weight loss throughout this series, I will be using most of those words. So you want to make sure that you'll understand what I'm talking about to get the most out of the series. Today, we're diving into the math of nutrition for weight loss. And this is really where the magic happens. And I have to confess, I realize this episode is a bit delayed in being published. I try to come out with an episode every week. I recorded this episode 2 times already, and I just wasn't happy with it. I felt like I overcomplicated the math and spent too much time in the actual equations and working through the equations. And I also felt like the episodes didn't really stand up to my mission for this podcast, which is to make things simple. So I took some time, I broke down these concepts even further and made some decisions to not spend as much time on how to work through the equations. We are going to do some math today, but nothing too advanced. And I also wanted to make sure I was talking more about why the math is so important. Getting deep into the math is super important because all these recommendations of having a calorie budget come alive. It gives the process teeth and a real purpose, which in the end helps us solidify the why and the reasoning behind eating in a calorie deficit and finding your personal calorie budget. And also, it's going to help you understand food labels as well. So something that you look at all the time, or you're going to start looking at all the time, will start to actually make sense to you after this episode, because doing and seeing the math in action is the proof that these recommendations will work if you stick with them. Plus, learning about calories and the math within total calories helps us read food labels and helps us to make positive food choices towards our goals. All things we really want and really need to be successful in weight loss. But I believe we can achieve that without having to do heavy lifting in algebra, which may intimidate some people. And I know I don't love math, and gosh, I do now, but I really had to take a long time to get there. And I took so much math in college, and that's when I really got good at it. But it was super tough for me, I'm not going to lie. And I don't want to start this episode off by saying, oh, we're going to do equations and to turn people away. I don't want that to scare people off or frustrate people or steer you away from this process. So I took the last couple of weeks and really thought about what are the high level numbers and figures we need to lock in. And from there, I'll share with you a calculator that's already set up with these equations. So you can just pop in some personal data points and it will give you the numbers you will need to start tracking your calories and weight loss progress. So with that said, thank you for everyone for your patience. I know this episode is a bit late, but I trust in God's timing here. It was definitely needed for me to pause and rethink the mission and the outcome of this episode and put some revisions in the episode for clarity purposes. And I think it's going to be a whole lot easier and a whole lot more accessible and usable for anyone that listens to this. But before we get into anything, if you could please help me out by hitting that like and subscribe button if you're listening on YouTube, or making sure to follow the podcast on your favorite podcast players, as this is a signal to yourself that you are ready to take your health serious. Thank you in advance, as your support helps me to be able to continue this work, which is my passion to help as many women as I can find their very own healthy living routines, strong bodies through fitness, and their dreamiest weight loss goals. All right, the math of nutrition for weight loss. So, where do we start? Well, I want to start by saying this again. I said this in a couple episodes already, but nutrition is a true science. So, the math behind the process of weight loss is solid. There are multiple equations out there that have been used for decades and are derived from actual scientific studies and are used regularly. So, there's the Harris-Benedict equation. This is the one I'm most familiar with. And there's also the Mifflin-St. Jean equation. There are many, many others, but like I mentioned just before, the math helps us solidify the why you need to take time to track your calories and the why you have a specific calorie budget that is totally unique to you. And for me, when I started this process many, many years ago, I was reading somewhere that I needed to eat within a calorie budget. If I wanted to, be successful at weight loss, I needed to be in a calorie deficit. And I was learning about all those terms and what that meant. And for me, when I start to learn something, I want to know the why and the how of every single detail. I really want to see the hard proof. So if you're like me, you have that deep examiner brain and personality. Getting into the math will not only clarify the why, but it will motivate you because the math doesn't lie, you guys. It provides clarity on the process. The other thing I want to say about this is that we have the equations, we have the calculators, but really, if we're talking about nutritional math as a science, we want to also be talking about being precise. We really can't be super precise at home, unfortunately, but we can get pretty close. So for example, we're going to be talking about body fat percentage a little bit later in the podcast and also basal metabolic rate. Yes, there are equations out there to calculate these figures and these data points for you, but the most precise way for these calculations to be processed and to determine, let's just use body fat percentage, for example, is to go to a lab or have a skin fold test or even get a body scan. So all those things, most of us don't have time, money, or access to do. So we will lean on the math equations. The cool thing is we can get pretty close. We can get close enough, and then we can learn and track our calories, and we can adjust the numbers as needed. And you may need to adjust because the math is super strong, but because your body is super unique, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in just a second, it can require more or less calories for a variety of reasons, but the power is literally in your hands once you have the math locked in. So why is finding your own personal nutritional math important? Well, everybody is different and unique, like I just said. Your age, if you're a man or a woman, what you do for work, how much you sit around while you're off work, even how much you fidget or don't fidget. Yes, I know that sounds super crazy and wild. We could get super deep here, but let's talk about some of the numbers we need to lock in before we start using the calculators that I'm going to share with you guys to come up with our own weight loss calorie budget. So down in the show notes, there is a free worksheet I made for you. Go ahead and download that right now. You can fill in the worksheet as I go over these personal metrics and the math, and also the calculator that I want you guys to use for some of the other calculations in this worksheet and for this podcast are linked on that spreadsheet. So you want to make sure that you have that in front of you. Go ahead and get that in your hands now. First, we're going to work through the very first steps of weight loss math, and that is recording your starting points. This is fairly simple, and I like to call these your personal data points. You can use the worksheet I made to just fill in this data. I have special spots for all this stuff for you to just fill in your personal data points. And it just starts with today's date or the date of whenever you're starting this process. So we want to record the following details: your age, your weight in pounds, your height in feet and inches. Then I want you to take your body measurements. So to take your body measurements, you're going to need a soft measuring tape to do this. It's helpful if you have someone else do it for you, but it's not totally necessary. And some tips when you're doing your body measurements are to relax while you're doing this. You don't want to be holding your breath or sucking in or being tense. You just kind of want to have a relaxed, loose affect about you while you're taking the measurements, so you get clean measurements. You want them to be as as precise as possible, right? And I also like to do this, in a bathing suit or underwear. So we're on the skin for most of the measurements, not like through baggy clothes or even jeans or anything like that. We want to be on the skin if possible, or as close as possible, like if you were in a bathing suit or underwear. If you're in a bathing suit though, a one piece isn't a good idea because we want your trunk, so your abdomen, to be just relaxed, not kind of secure in a bathing suit. So if you have a two piece, that would be better. Or again, a bra and underwear or totally naked is fine. It's probably best so you get really good measurements. And you also want to do it twice through so you can just double check that you are getting as close as possible to the correct number. The areas that we're going to be measuring will be your neck, your bust, your waist, your hips, your thighs, calves, and upper arms. So if you've never taken your body measurements before, go on YouTube and just search on how to take body measurements. There are some specific areas, around the waist, around your thigh. You want to do like the largest part of your thigh. Same thing for your upper arm. Your waist is, where your belly button is, or the smallest part of your waist. It kind of depends. Everyone's shaped a little bit different, but there are some key places where the measuring tape should be placed. So any quick YouTube tutorial can teach you how to do that. It's fairly simple. And we're taking these measurements for a few reasons. So the first reason is we need your neck, waist, and hip measurements to use in our calculator for our body fat percentage. The second reason is, and I love this one, is as you lose weight, you will want to track how your body composition changes in these areas. So when I say body composition, I mean, have you lost inches on your thighs? Have you lost inches around your booty? Have you lost inches in your arms or, your bust, your waist, your hips? The number on the scale isn't the only metric of success. And many people, especially if they're strength training, they lose a little weight, but a lot of inches. And again, it's unique to you and how you're training and a bunch of other things. But knowing your body measurements is one of the key performance metrics and personal data points that we can use as indicators of success, or to give us information on how we can shift if we're feeling like we're plateauing or just not moving in the direction that we want. So it's not just about the scale. So this is a really great thing to start out with and get your starting data so you know where you started from, where you came from, right? Take some time to take your measurements. If you don't have a soft measuring tape, they're extremely cheap. I will add one to my Amazon list. You can click on the link down in the show notes and just grab one there. Here's a little tip that I can give you. If you're a member of a gym, many times their trainers will do this stuff for you like during a free consultation. So they'll even do like a skin fold test for you if you want. They're trained to do it, and they'll do your full body measurements, the skin fold test with the calipers to get your body fat percentage. And even at some gyms now, they even have these things called an in-body machine, which it sends electrical pulses through your hands and your feet, which gives a bunch of data back, like body fat percentage, lean body mass, muscle mass, literally in each leg, arm, trunk. It's very detailed. And a lot of times they'll do this for free because it's like their gateway into getting you into personal training, or they just have it as a concierge service. So it's worth asking about if you currently belong to a gym. And also, a lot of gyms offer a free week. And if you want to get that free week under your belt, you could see if they also have this free service for the trainers. So you get a free week at the gym, and then you get a professional doing this for you for free. So just a little tip there. I've definitely done this, and it was super helpful because when I didn't know how to do things myself, it was nice to kind of watch them do it. And then I was able to do it on my own moving forward. But that's a lot to do. I know we're busy moms, so grab a measuring tape, a soft measuring tape, pop on a YouTube video, and I don't know, have your husband help you or your bestie, and you'll be fine. And I actually don't have this listed on the worksheet, but taking full length photos from the front, side, and back are also really helpful when we're starting out. Most women do these in a bathing suit or bra and undies, but I like to recommend putting on like your favorite pair of jeans that might not be fitting right now, or a dress that might not, be zipping up in the back or something like that, like something that you're looking forward to fitting in down the road. And this is so fun to do, but you want to do the front, back, and side so you can see yourself, in whatever clothing you're wearing or not wearing. But just like the body measurements versus the scale isn't always the indicator of success. Visually, we can see how our clothes are fitting or how we look in the mirror. That can also change if the scale isn't moving as much as you think it is. There's a lot of other stuff. Your body composition is shifting and will shift in front of your eyes. So having photos of your beginning and as you progress through the process is super helpful. And something fun, I've seen women do this in their wedding dresses. So most of us were much younger and probably a much thinner when we got married, and our wedding dresses are quite small. I know mine is. And so I've seen a lot of women put on their wedding dress, and then many months later, as they've progressed through their weight loss journey, they put on their wedding dress and it zips right up, and it's like the day they got married. And it's pretty fun and just kind of a different way to do the before and after photos. So just something to think about if you want to jazz this up and put a fun twist on your before and after photos. Okay, let's first talk about body fat percentage. So you've gotten all your personal data down on the top of the worksheet. So your age, we know that you're a female, the date of today's date, and you've done your body measurements. So we know what size your neck, your bust, your hips, waist, thighs, and arms, calves are. So those are things that we're going to reference back as we talk about the other parts on that worksheet and use the calculator that I have linked there for you. Body fat percentage is the amount of fat in your body compared to everything else. So like your muscles, bones, organs, water. Imagine your body is like a pie chart. So some of it is fat and the rest of the chart is everything else that keeps you moving and strong. And having some body fat is totally normal, and it's important because it helps to keep us warm, gives us energy, and is an energy storage. So it has a lot of purpose. It also plays a role in our hormone production and things like that. So it's not all bad, and I think fat gets a bad rap, but too much or too little can affect your health. So people measure body fat percentage to understand their fitness, their body composition, and then also helps them drive healthy choices down the line. So body fat percentage is one of the personal metrics that is best calculated with a body scan, like a DEXA scan, or there's an in-body scan that they might have at a local gym you can do. I think it's pretty cheap. It's like $25 or something, and it's not invasive or anything. It's just like standing on a scale. But a skin fold test or a DEXA scan, those are the most common and the gold standard for body fat percentage. I call this out because really, if someone is ultra muscular, one's body fat percentage may come up higher than it really is when we're using the equations instead of like a scanner or skin fold test. But we are recognizing that we're at home and we just can't get super precise, but we want some data to be able to track just so we can see if the needle is moving or not. And if you're listening on this podcast, my goal is to be speaking to women who have a moderate to significant amount of weight to lose. So getting to know this metric is very important and can be used to see if you're succeeding or not. So if you can get a scan, get one. They're called DEXA scans. But again, it's not necessary. We're going to use the equations here. And the equation that we're going to use is actually the equation that the US Navy uses to measure body fat percentage when people are applying or going through their health screening for the Navy. Okay, so let's get your body fat percentage. When you download the worksheet in the show notes, the link is there that will take you to the body fat percentage calculator. And I want to vet this calculator. I have done the math manually and it comes out pretty close to what the calculator spits out. So I'm pretty sure this works very well. And for our purposes here, we just want to get as close as possible to get a starting number. So you'll see a few of the metrics you already have recorded are required to be plugged into the calculator so it can give you your body fat percentage. Those metrics are, so you can just look at the top of your worksheet, you've already put them down. So you need to put in your sex, so if you're male or female, your age, your weight in pounds, your height in feet and inches, and your neck circumference in feet and inches, and finally your waist circumference in feet and inches. So go ahead and plug in those values into the calculator and it will spit out your estimated body fat percentage, and go ahead and plug that in right into your worksheet. So this is your starting body fat percentage. After you have been following your calorie budget for about 9 weeks, I would love for you to come back and return to this worksheet and recalculate this metric and see how your body fat has shifted. The calculator will also show you a little color scale, and also below it, there is a results table with a recommended body fat percentage for your age, your sex. It will also put you into a healthy body fat category. So it's going to put you in a category and let you know, like, if you're overweight, if you're obese, if, something like that. I don't want you to get too wrapped up in being overly concerned of what category this calculator puts you in. Women in general have a higher body fat percentage than men, and that's just the way God made us. But in regards to our current weights, we may have been categorized as obese or overweight or something else. It might say you're healthy. That's great. It might say you're underweight, but I want you not to worry so much about the words and just be more focused on the numerical data it's giving us. It's information that we can track. I don't want anyone to get into an emotional tizzy about what category this calculator is putting you in. Here's why. Just by being interested in bettering yourself and becoming healthy, listening to this podcast, starting to make plans and learn how you can lose weight to become healthier is the answer. And you're already on your way to being a better, healthier you. So hats off to you, sister. But again, as we work through this worksheet and record your numbers, and also as you track your progress, I would love it for everyone to take the approach that the numbers on the scales or your body measurements, your body fat percentages, these are literally just data points that tell us what we're doing is working or isn't working. And right now we're getting our starting data points. I just want everyone to think of it as a number, not as you're fat or obese or a terrible person, because I know this can be emotional for people. It's very intimate. And all we're doing right now is getting information on ourselves so we can make healthier decisions moving forward and make sure that we're on the right track as we progress. So if you want to think of it like a business owner who evaluates their key performance indicators and their profit margins, they can make decisions about their business and make shifts as needed with the data that they track. So this is our goal with these numbers. Same idea. All right, we've got our first metric down. And for this metric, for the body fat percentage, the goal would be for it to go down over time. So let's talk about our next metric, basal metabolic rate. I spoke about this in episode number 17. So the basal metabolic rate, this is essentially the amount of calories we need. So the amount of energies, calories and energy are interchangeable here. That we need if we had nothing to eat or drink. This is like the baseline calories needed to pump blood, breathe, digest, etc. There is a similar function called resting metabolic rate. And interestingly, this rate can go up and down as we eat and depends on temperature for all types of other stuff like exercise, foods that we eat and drinks that we had. It's pretty cool. And I just listened to an incredible podcast about this by Dr. Andy Galpin. I will link it in the show notes if you want to get even deeper about the math and the physiological process about metabolism and how to increase the rate or decrease the rate. But let's just jump into the basal metabolic rate here. And the calculator that we have is using the BMR. So basal metabolic rate, BMR, I might use those interchangeably. The calculator that I'm offering you can calculate this, and it's the same one that we did with your body fat percentage. So it's nice, it's convenient in the same website. But we don't really need to track this one like we would track our calories daily. But I want to show you this number because it's unique to you based on your height and weight, and depending on how much you are working out or lack thereof. So starting out with calculating this number, we can shine light on if we are overeating based on how much energy our body actually needs. And we won't know if we're overeating until we calculate our calorie budget and track for a bit. That's coming up later in the podcast, but let's just see what our estimated BMR is using the worksheet and the calculator. You can click the link for the BMR calculator and enter your age, your sex, height in feet and inches, and your weight in pounds. The calculator will give you your estimated BMR. And I say estimated because, again, these types of rates are best calculated in a lab setting, but we don't have that, so we will use the math. As you progress through your weight loss journey, you will come back and reevaluate this in about 9 weeks. And every 9 weeks or so, as you continue through your process, just like your body fat percentage, we want to see this number shift a little bit. Why is calculating this so important? Well, as you lose weight, your BMR is going to go down. So this is important to call out because we will come up with a calorie budget later on that will also be based on your weight. And we don't want to be overeating or even under eating. This gives us an idea of where we should start with our calorie budget, because this, again, the BMR is like our ultimate, like the minimum amount we need for our body to just be. Like if you're laying flat, nothing in your stomach, nothing to drink, no coffee, anything, just laying there doing nothing, that is you still need energy to be alive, right? So the BMR is important, and it's based on your weight. So if your weight shifts, so your BMR is going to shift, which ultimately is going to shift your calorie budget needs. So I'm going to talk more about that. So if you think about wow, I've plateaued, you might hear that I plateaued. Well, if you're losing weight consistently and your weight has shifted down, then your calorie needs shift as well. So we'll talk more about that later in the podcast. I'm going to pause on that topic for a second, and I'm going to dive into the actual food calories for a bit. I want to make sure that you understand how to calculate total calories and also how calories are calculated from macronutrients. So remember, those are fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. If you look on packaged foods, you'll see a nutrition facts label. So we're all used to seeing those. And on that label, it will say calories. It's the very top number, big and bold, which is the number representing the sum total of total calories in a particular serving of that food. Well, you might wonder, how do they know how much calories are in that particular serving of food? It's a really great question. And the answer is each macronutrient, so proteins, fats, carbohydrates, they have a certain amount of energy inside of them. Not by coincidence are these 3 essential nutrients listed directly underneath the total calories. So each of these holds, again, a specific amount of calories per gram, or if it's easier for you to understand, a specific amount of energy per gram. If you have the worksheet downloaded, I have this listed out for you. I'll explain it here. So 1 gram of protein gives 4 calories. 1 gram of carbohydrate gives 4 calories. And 1 gram of fat gives 9 calories. Okay, here we go doing some actual math now. This is straight multiplication. So for example, if someone tells you there are 10 grams of protein in a food, and we know that protein offers 4 calories per gram of protein, then we would multiply that 10 grams of protein by the 4 calories given per gram, and we get 40 calories. If we did that math with all of the macronutrients, we could come up with the approximate total calories in a specific serving of food. Pretty cool, right? I love it. It makes more sense when you look at the food labels now. If you've never learned that, you're like, where do these numbers come from? Well, that's exactly where they come from. And understanding this math will help you read the nutrition facts on all the food you eat, and also help you see why higher fat foods can really be tricky. If you're on a weight loss journey, healthy fats are so your friend, and I will chat more about that topic in the What to Eat episode. But from a math perspective, they can quickly use up your calorie budget if you're not careful, so causing you to overeat and have a surplus. So that's why we track our food. That is why we track our food, because it becomes like a numbers game. And I like to gamify it when I'm tracking my food. I'm like, okay, I've had this. Okay, how can I shift what I eat? Like that kind of has a lot more fat than I like. It's going to really push me over the edge or get me close. And it's only lunchtime, and just kind of make a game out of it. But listen, that's why we track, because these foods that we eat have numerical values, and they have energy consequences that either pack on the pounds, or our body gets in a deficit from us tracking and pulling from those current fat stores that we have, and allows us to lose weight. So if you're feeling up to it, go grab something out of the pantry and do the math for the protein, fats, and carbs. Then add the 3 up and see, and it should add up to the total calories listed on the top of the nutrition label there. So kind of cool. You're officially nutrition scientist now. Okay, drum roll, the part you've all been waiting for. Let's finally calculate your weight loss calorie budget. If you haven't already, you're going to need the worksheet at this point, because I have the math laid out for you, and you can just plug in your weight and complete the calculation on the worksheet. It's fairly simple, a couple multiplication and then 1 column of addition. So nothing too fancy. And this is why I spent time kind of paring down what math we should do. I was like, what is the simplest thing that I can provide them just to get started? So the math I have laid out here is from one of my favorite books called Thinner, Leaner, Stronger by Michael Matthews. I'll link to it in the show notes. Now, if you're going to dig into this book, you will be shown all of the math, all the nitty-gritty equations to get to this point in great detail. That goes before, like there's so many things that you have to calculate before you get here. And I've really pared it all down and said, okay, this is like the minimum I could provide for you to get your feet wet in the math. A lot of people don't even want to track their food. That's too much for them. And really, they're missing out on the gold standard tool that's going to get them to their weight loss. So basically, we're going to use your body fat percentage to determine which set of equations you're going to use. So I have 2 blocks of equations for this if you're on the worksheet. So it'll say one set is for if your body fat percentage is 30% or less. And then if it's 31% or more, so if it's more than 30%, you're going to use the other set. And let me just explain to you why. So if you have more body fat, you have a bigger cushion, so a bigger deficit that you could have, because you have more stored energy on your body for your body to use. So if you have a higher body fat percentage, we can put you in a bigger calorie deficit. So I have the macronutrients listed out there. So proteins, fats, and carbohydrates based on, there's 2 sets, like I said, for your body fat percentage. But what you'll see is each macronutrient has a number listed immediately next to it. So for example, a protein says you will multiply 1.2 by your current body weight in pounds. So I just want to call out that 1.2 is actually representing a number of grams of protein. So the first part of the calculation is figuring out how many grams of protein you will have per day based on your current body weight. Then you do the same with fat and carbs. That's your first set of calculations, and you're going to get products for each. From there, you'll see some familiar numbers. Again, using the example of protein, the next step is to multiply your answer by 4. Remember, each macronutrient gives us a specific amount of calories or energy, whatever you want to call it. Protein is 4 calories per gram. So what we're doing is multiplying your total grams of protein per day by 4. This will give you the total calories from protein that you should have in your budget. So you will repeat those steps with fats and carbs based on whatever the beginning multiplier is. So the fat has a different number versus the protein versus the carbs. You'll see it listed there right next to the word of protein, fats, or carbs. And finally, the last step is to add up the 3 final answers you got on each line, and you just add up that final column. This is your calorie budget for weight loss right there, whatever the sum total is of those calories per day. And this is a little tricky to explain on audio, so please be sure to go download that workshop. I have this laid out for you so simply. You literally just fill in the blanks and do a couple steps of multiplication and then finally do the addition step. I also have an example that is fully calculated that will help you figure anything out if you're confused or having trouble. So you can always email me if you have questions, or be sure to leave a comment in the YouTube. So I'm sure most people have similar questions, so I can always answer your questions down in the YouTube comments as well. So that wraps up the math for nutrition for weight loss. And we really only scratched the surface, but there isn't a need to really go deeper unless you're super duper interested in the deeper metabolic process, which I totally get because I am. Please go right ahead. Make learning this science your hobby. That's what I did. And look, now I'm here sharing it with you. So, if it inspires you to learn more and keeps you motivated, definitely take the time to dig deeper into these concepts. Now that you have your starting numbers and your calorie budget, it's time to put it into action. So I want you to download a calorie tracker and start tracking your calories daily. I know you're probably thinking, well, what should I eat? So I have a number about what should I eat. This is literally one of the number one things I get asked. I will have a whole episode to answer that question, but for now, I recommend just getting used to tracking your food each day, no matter if you eat over or under your calorie budget. And before I keep going, a special note, please be sure that you're not eating under 1,200 calories. That's really not a lot of calories. Keep a careful eye. If you are eating under 1,200 calories, make sure to focus on getting more calories and energy into your body so you can just maintain optimal health. But for this first phase, let's just get in a routine of logging in and tracking in your app of what you ate. So don't worry about what it is, just track it. And you really kind of might get your feet wet in portion control. I don't really recommend that right now. I'm all about teeny tiny baby steps, but just go in there and say, okay, I had Honey Nut Cheerios and oat milk. And you're like, I didn't measure it, but I'm going to make an estimate of how much I ate. That's fine. Let's just get started tracking your food. And I like to use an app called, I always say the name wrong, so it's Chronometer, or MyFitnessPal, which is super popular. I had been using MyFitnessPal for over a decade, but I recently switched over to is it Chronometer? I always say it wrong. I don't know. But I like the interface a lot better. It has a lot more data for me to analyze, and it has the barcode scanner, which is free. So that means you can scan a food's barcode and it populates the nutrition data for you. MyFitnessPal also has that feature, but it is no longer a free feature. So that is one reason that I left MyFitnessPal. And keep in mind, we want to just keep it simple. Even just estimate the serving size. Like I said, we'll get into portion sizes in the what to eat episode. And also, you will be building a new routine here that will also be logging a whole lot of information, because logging your food isn't just about making sure you eat within your calorie budget, but also you'll be able to determine what foods are making you feel not great, like bloated, sluggish. Maybe they're even bothering your sleep or giving you headaches. You might be experiencing, some sort of funky allergy symptoms or stomach pains or GI symptoms. We always want the foods that you're eating to make you feel really good and full of energy. And sometimes some of these other weird symptoms and sluggishness, for me, it's like the sluggishness and the bloated and like the feeling lethargic is really centered around what I've been eating. And if I can take a log and kind of start seeing like, I ate that on that day and I didn't really feel great, that right there, even though it's not a total weight loss driven decision, will make you feel better. And again, weight loss is just the icing on top, the cherry on top. We're also driving towards better energy, clarity of mind, feeling good, feeling powerful and confident. We want to make sure that the foods you're eating are making you feel that way too. So logging your foods will help you stay in your calorie budget, but it will also help you make more sound, positive food decisions down the road. So go download the worksheet if you haven't already and come back for the next episode in this series, which is going to be the what to eat episode. I can't wait to do that one because it's super fun and we're going to, build a meal plan together. Thanks for listening, you guys. I'm excited for the next episode. I know this was a lot of information. And if you have any questions, don't feel any hesitation. Send me an email, get to the questions link in the show notes, or put them in the YouTube comments, and I'll be happily reply to you. Thanks for listening to the Health Hobby Podcast. Until next time. there, me again. Quick disclaimer. Here on the Health Hobby Podcast, I share tips, insights, and ideas to help you on your weight loss and fitness journey. But I'm not your doctor or your personal health guru. Before diving into any nutrition or fitness plans I talk about, make sure to check in with your healthcare provider. They know your body best. Think of this podcast as your cheerleader in a place for healthy living idea inspiration, not your prescription pad. Stay safe, stay smart, and let's crush those goals together. Until next time.